So there's already tons of discussion happening on the new spell changes and just in test realm in general. Like there's a lot of things going on with this test realm, but I wanted to mainly focus on talking about the spell nerfs because they're such a big deal and they're going to impact so many players. So I want to make a video just dedicated to that because I think it's one of the most impactful things that they have in this test realm. But just want to start off by showing you guys the Arcanum because they did add in this little kind of sneak peek / teaser of something that's going to be happening in the Arcanum sometime soon. So this is in the test room right now, and it's just one of the doors of the Arcanum, kind of like sectioned off there, and something happened, something blew up. But I didn't mention in the last test room, but this door right here actually had like a music symbol on it, so this was some kind of music office. So I think if you put those two together, that's probably going to be the start of the next arc. The next world is probably going to start in the Arcanum, and we're going to have something to do with this door and also with the other door as well, which leads to some kind of music office. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, just wanted to mention that because they're kind of little Easter eggs that they're throwing in there into the test realms to hint at the future world. The spell nerfs are pretty crazy, and some schools got hit a lot harder than others. I wanted to mostly focus on Storm in the beginning, and then I'll look into some of the other schools. Like Myth was pretty bad, Balance was bad, as well as Death. Those were like the three that had some major changes to like their main hitting spell, at least for Shadow. So let's go ahead and get started with the Storm spells, because I'm on my Storm. This is my main hitting school that I use, my main character. I perfect the stats on this character because I want him to be the absolute best Storm possible for PvE. So I really care about the stats, and I also care about the spells. So if we look through here, there's been a lot of discussion on the damage per pip, and Glowbugs was nerfed, currently on test realm. This might not go through all the way, I don't know yet, but the damage is 730, and it only removes one charm from the enemies. Used to remove all of them, but that is the current change that is on test realm, and a lot of people have been talking about it. I even tweeted about it because it's such a drastic change. Some people seem to think that I wanted these spells to be nerfed and that I should be happy about it, but I wanted everything to be nerfed. I wanted them to scale back the whole game. You can't just scale back like a few spells and then leave everything else the same. So if they're going to scale back spells, they should not only scale back our rank 5 shadow spells, but all the other spells, or the enemies as well, because now our hard hitting spells are going to be doing less damage against the enemies with the same health. I'm assuming they're going to change that at some point, but it's just something that needs to happen. If they're going to nerf one thing, then a lot of other things should probably get nerfed as well. Like everything should be kind of brought back and rebalanced. So I don't know what they're doing with that. If they're going to nerf Bugs and Rusalka, then I guess that brings Iron Sultan up to being a lot better of a spell, because why would you ever use Rusalka at 1165 if you could just use Iron Sultan for 10 less damage? Rusalka is completely useless now. I just have to say that. This spell is complete trash. You absolutely ruined Rusalka for no reason. Like, I know a lot of people are mad about Glowbugs, and trust me, I will get to Glowbugs, but what did you have to do this to Rusalka for? Like, the spell already has a drawback. You can get a negative 30% put on you after you use a spell. There's absolutely no reason to use this for 10 extra damage compared to Iron Sultan. You might as well just always use Iron Sultan as a single hit. So I have no idea. I mean, unless you want to gamble to try to get the plus 30, but it's almost not worth it. You might as well just use Iron Sultan every time. Plus, you save 2 pips. Is 2 pips worth the extra 10 damage and the extra potential blade that you can get? Probably not. I had to mention that because that was just something that blew my mind, and I didn't really recognize it until now. But like once you see it in the game, you really can see the values and compare them, and it's crazy. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I don't know what they did to Rusalka. I'm sorry, but that's a weird one to me. So let's go and get started with the AoEs. Going back, Storm starts with Tempest as like the main AoE that you use until you get to Stormlord, and Tempest is 80 damage per pip. So keep that in mind, 80 damage per pip, because I'm going to be talking about per pip damage that all these spells do as you kind of rank up and get all these spells. So Tempest is 80. As you move along and you get your level 48 spell, you will get Stormlord, which is 690 for 7 pips. Pretty good. And the damage per pip of Stormlord is 98.57. So that's way better than Tempest. If you have 7 pips, you're going to use Stormlord. You're not going to use Tempest. If you have less than 7 pips, you'll probably still use Tempest because you want to hit all. Or you just wait for 7, use Stormlord. So no brainer. That one's easy. You just do it, whatever. Then you rank up and you'll eventually get Sirens. Sirens is great. 9 pips does 880. That is a little bit less damage per pip than Stormlord at 97.78. So in terms of the value that you get per pip, Stormlord is still the best, but at 9 pips, you're going to do more damage with Sirens, so, you're going to use that. That's like the best hit all right now, which is funny to say. Sirens is the best. And then we get to Glowbugs. You waited so long, you did Darkmoor to get this spell. It's supposed to be your big hitting shadow spell that you can use all the time and just clean up enemies. And this one is at 730. Sure, it's 5 pips. You have to get a shadow, though. Maybe they made it shadows harder to get. I don't really know that yet. But 730. The per pip cost of Glowbugs, if you consider Glowbugs to be a 8 pip spell, because they said that shadow pips are basically worth 3 pips, so Glowbugs would be worth 8 pips total. And the damage per pip on this one is going to be 91.25. That is lower than Stormlord and lower than Sirens. So the value that you get per pip in this one is just, it's not good. Like, it's not good compared to, Sirens and everything else. And if you have 9 pips, you're just always going to use Sirens. You're not going to use Glowbugs anymore. Unless you want to save pips, but I don't know why. You're doing less damage. You're doing 150 less damage by using Glowbugs. And if you look at it pre-nerf, they reduced it by 400 damage. Pre-nerf, Glowbugs was at 1120, and the damage per pip on that was 140. And that's insane. Like, I will admit that 140 damage per pip on Glowbugs before it was nerfed was pretty crazy. And it removed all your blades, like, on every enemy. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I admit that that spell was OP at that level. But that doesn't mean they had to nerf it this much. And at 140 per pip, they reduced it to 91 per pip. I think they could have found a, kind of a middle range on that one. Like, my suggestion would be reduce it to 920 damage. It's still a storm spell. It should still do, around 1,000 damage, I would think. But I would say 920, and the damage per pip on that would be 115. That makes sense. It's better than Sirens and Stormlord because it's a higher rated spell. I mean, it's harder to get. You get it in Darkmoor. You get it way later in the game. So, I don't know. Either somewhere around, 115 per pip, 110, something like that. Around 900 damage, I feel like would make more sense than 730. The nerf of it removing only one positive charm, I don't really care too much about that. I mean, people aren't really using Glowbugs to remove blades anyway. So, that's fine. If they want to nerf that, like, I'm not too upset about that. But I am upset about the damage a little bit. Because it's... like... The other thing to think about is, what is the Shadow Pip percentage? Now, Shadow Pip rating, for me, on my best gear, is 103 rating. I don't even know what that means. Like, I don't even know what percentage that is anymore, and I don't know how often I'll get Shadow Pips. I think they said you get 1 every 3 turns on average. What's funny is, you start with 5 pips, right? So that's your first turn. Second turn, you have 7 pips. You could use Stormlord. Third turn, the turn that you, on average, would get a Shadow Pip, you would have 9 pips. So you might as well just use Sirens at that point rather than Glowbugs. And if that's the average that they're going for, then looks like Siren is going to be the main hitter for Storm again. And what's funny is this spell is just infinitely better because it removes 2 charms. Wow, more than Glowbugs. And a negative 50 on all. Like, this spell is just so much better. This spell is insane. Like, who wouldn't use Sirens? So, I don't know. That's just... I think they should up the damage of bugs a bit. Because they should up it by like 200. Because 730 is just... It's just sad. And makes me not even feel like I'm a Storm anymore. I mean, Siren still makes me feel like I'm pretty powerful as a Storm. Which is supposed to be the, big hitter school in the game. But yeah, 730 is a little low for me. So next thing I want to talk about is some of the spells that got nerfed the hardest. And how this will impact each of those schools. Because some of these are pretty bad. Let's go ahead and get started with Myth, because Myth, their main hit, and honestly this is Myth's main hit, is Mystic Colossus. Myth has no other good hits for AoE. Like, Humongo Frog is a joke. Everyone knows that. Earthquake is whatever, you know, you're not going to use Earthquake. Like, you might as well use Humungar Fog, which does a little bit more damage. And then you wait until you finally get a good hit all, which was Mystic Colossus, right? And you have to get a Shadow to use it. So Myth, it really wasn't that good for hitting all unless they had a Shadow Pip. And that's fine, you know, whatever. Myth isn't like a main hitting school. It's a decent hitting school. At least it was. And, yeah, Kingsell decided that even though Myth was already in a weird place, like it wasn't the best hitting school, they decided to make it worse. So Myth with Mystic Colossus, it removes 1 ward before it hits. Okay, great. I mean, whatever. That's fine. But now it only does 450 damage to all. Like, that is just sad. Like, it's honestly sad. They reduced that by almost half. So you do half the damage that you used to do per enemy on this hit. And any school that gets a spell that got reduced by half, it's just going to impact them so much. Like, it just kind of is like demoralizing as that school to have this happen. And I would feel bad. Like, you know, Bugs didn't get nerfed by half, but they still got nerfed pretty substantially. But I mean, these ones got nerfed even worse. So yeah, Mystic used to do 880 and now it's down to 450. So I'm sorry for any Myth Wizards out there that, you know, worked for Dragoon gear and all this stuff, because now your hits are just going to not be as good. Like, it's going to be sad because people aren't going to want Myth hitters because Myth doesn't really have a good hit for all enemies. It's just not a thing anymore. Like, the ward removal before it hits is just not enough to offset the damage. It's not worth it. Any Myth Wizard would probably say, give me back the damage and have the wards be removed afterwards. So Myth got hit pretty hard with that. Another school that got hit really hard is Balance. And Balance already had some weird spells that, I mean, this one doesn't really impact PvE players too much, but I mean, it still has its place. You know, people use this spell for solo instances. And yeah, Gaze of Fate got absolutely destroyed. Gaze of Fate got reduced by 50% to 250 per hit. And the second hit is a random hit, by the way, so you don't even know what school it's going to hit. It still does the 25% balanced global damage spell, but it's just, it's reduced by so much. Like, literally, it went from 1,000 damage to 500. And that just sucks. Like, actually, I misspoke. Gaze of Fate was not nerfed by 50%. It was nerfed by more than 50%. It used to do 550 damage per hit, and now it does 250. So yeah, this was the hardest hit one, was this one. They reduced it by more than 50%, and that's just sad, honestly. Like, I feel bad for Balance Wizards on this one. Any school that gets their spell reduced by that much, like, it just sucks. You know, you have a max balance, and it's just like, well, there's one of my spells that just got, you know, nerfed to the ground. Am I ever going to use it again? I don't know. This is one that I really think they nerfed because of PvP, and it's unfortunate that a PvP nerf like that has to make its way into PvE, because it's going to affect every player that's balanced that uses that spell, that kind of relies on it. And because it was a good spell, like 550 was a lot of damage, and makes sense because it's a shadow hit, you know? They're supposed to do damage, but now they don't. So yeah, that's one I feel like really came from the PvP side of things, and they nerfed it, and now it's going to impact everyone. So kind of unfortunate for Balance on that. So the last one that I want to talk about that got nerfed pretty hard is the death spell, Call of Cthulhu, because this one is really sad. Like, this one, oh my god, like, this one they nerfed a lot. Call of Cthulhu used to be 1100, and now it's 595. So they nerfed this one pretty hard, not as hard as the other one, but this one has a bigger impact because this is Death's main hit. This is Death's main hit to deal a bunch of damage, you know, kill the enemies, and also get healed back to full. You know, Death Wizards would use this and get to full health because you do a lot of damage, and it's their main AoE. If you don't have a Shadow, then what is Death going to use? You're going to use Scarecrow? Scarecrow is always seen as being a very, you know, low damage spell for how many pips it is. So basically now Call of Cthulhu is just an upgraded Scarecrow. That's all it is. You know, Scarecrow does 400 base. This one does 595. So you can upgrade a Scarecrow for 5 pips and a Shadow. That's awesome. Can't wait till my Death Wizard finally levels up and gets that spell, so I can stop using Scarecrow. Actually, I'm probably not even going to do that. I'm probably going to keep using Deer Knight because it's our best hit, as a death. So yeah, that's that one. That one's going to impact a lot of players that play death, because I feel like death is a really popular school, and you still can heal back, but they just reduced it by so much. Like, that's your main hit, and now Death Wizards, it's like, should they even wait for a Shadow Pip? Should we just blade up, use Deer Knight, wait for the overtime? So obviously there's still some other ones, that other school spells that got nerfed that are still bad, but I feel like those 3 right there are the worst ones that impact a lot of players, that are really just gonna kind of set those schools back. Like Myth and Death, especially for the AoEs in PvE, is super good, and that's just brings them down a lot. Balance, I feel like already was kind of bad. Like, Balance's spells have been getting nerfed left and right, and now it's just continuing with this update. So feel bad for anyone that has those 3. What's funny is I don't really have any of those 3 schools, except Death, but my Death is lost in Azteca. So yeah, some heavy hitting nerfs. I'm hoping that they can kind of reevaluate these and maybe bring the damage up a little bit, especially for some of those AoEs on the schools that need it, like Myth, Death, you know. I mean, I feel like Balance does need Gaze of Fate. It's a good spell. But yeah, hopefully King's Isle can take into consideration some of people's concerns with those, because that's going to be bad. Like, unless they do go through and nerf everything in the game and bring down mob health, boss health, I just don't know why they would do that, because that seems like a lot of extra work. All they have to do is, yes, you can nerf the spells, but maybe not by this much. It's the same thing that happened with the pet hatching update. They initially came out with this big nerf on pet hatching and made the cost so expensive, and then people complained and everything, and they brought it down a little bit. And I feel like that's gonna happen with this. They're gonna listen to people's complaints, and then they're gonna bring up the damage, hopefully a bit. I mean, we'll see how much, but definitely on some of these schools that really use those hits, like anytime you nerf an AoE, it's a huge deal, because I'm talking from PvE. I mean, I don't really talk about PvP. I feel like a lot of these spells were nerfed because of PvP, but if they do that, then they need to really consider how that's going to impact PvE players that are going through content and going up against the same bosses with the same health, same cheats and everything, with worse spells. So I know they're probably doing that, but I'm not seeing anything about it yet. I don't know when that's going to be happening, when they're going to actually nerf basically the whole game. Like, everything after when we get these spells from Darkmoor should be nerfed in some way. Just wanted to go over these with you guys in more detail. I'm sorry for any Balance, Myth, and Death Wizards out there. It's gonna be tough. Like, I'm fighting for you guys. I'm trying to get these spells to be not nerfed as hard. I mean, if they're going to nerf it, I really want to know what they're planning on doing with the rest of the game. Thank you guys so much for your support on my test run videos. If you enjoyed this discussion video, then please leave a like on it. Definitely subscribe for more test run videos in the future, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. I have a playlist if you missed any test run videos so far. Go check it out on the channel. But other than that, hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you all next time.